Okay, brake. Hello? I gotta figure a way out to bleed my brakes all by myself. It's a solo trip after all. Oh well. Hello again, welcome back to the channel. Since I've been well on track with my preparations for the trip, I gotta find a way to deal with my brakes being on my own. It being a solo trip, not sponsored by anything or anyone, I gotta be able to take care of myself, and I gotta think ahead of any kind of a predicament that might come along. So in case I have a faulty brake cylinder, anything that could go wrong with my brakes, and I will need to bleed them, I won't have a second person to be stepping on the brakes while I do the bleed job on the brakes around the car. So I gotta come up with a way of taking care of that problem. Now, I could go online and buy a ready-made, readily available brake bleeding kit. I don't really want to do that because if I start buying one kit for everything I need for this trip, I will need a second car just to fit all the stuff in there. So I'm gonna make do with what I have, and I'll be upcycling, reusing stuff I've been keeping in my shelves and drawers, trash, for ages, and come up with an apparatus that will allow me to bleed my brakes on my own. So, cutting to the chase, the plan is to come up with something that will utilize stuff I will already be carrying with me anyway. Meaning, I will need a bottle of brake fluid, so I will be carrying this with me, so I will utilize this one as my pressure tank, and my pressure source is going to be something I will be carrying with me anyway, and that will be my spare tire. So I will be utilizing pressurized air from the spare tire to pressurize the bottle to feed the brake pump, and hence being able to bleed my brakes. So how that's going to work is, I had an old piece of hose from an old foot pump. The foot pump broke down, but I kept the hose, which means I can actually use that to hook it up to the spare tire, and that's going to give me a pressure source. So the plan is to connect that to my brake fluid, so that will become pressurized, and then I will need to create a feed pipe from the brake fluid to my brake pump. I need to do that because the easy thing would be to just connect the spare tire straight to the pump. Here's a pump, an old one, rusty, seized up. So I could just connect the tire, run this one straight on the top of the cap of my pump, and bleed the brakes. In theory this could work, but you don't really want to do that, because if you get carried away bleeding brakes, as you bleed them, the fluid level is going to start going down, and then if air goes through, you're screwed. You're going to have to start all over again, and this is risky. Alternatively, I will be using a hookah setup. So my high pressure air from the tire will go from the side, and then I will run a pipe vertically down through my brake fluid bottle, and then that will ensure that as the pressure builds in the bottle, it will push the fluid down and up through the pipe and send it to my pump. So let's try and make this work. So ingredients for this recipe are basically things that have been laying around in drawers and shelves since forever, and I'm gonna be combining them to create a contraption to bleed the brakes. So first things first, I'm using the cap from my brake pump, because this is the first step. You gotta be able to just bolt it on, and there it is. What I've done is I've taken the cap ring only, removed the failure switch mechanism, And I used me a washer which just perfectly fit the cap, and on the top of it drilled a hole and installed a nozzle that has also been laying around as scrap for years. And again, I'm one of those guys that never throws anything away. From that broken foot pump that I was mentioning, I have a small extension hose which will fit here. So I have a way to connect my brake pump. So that would be the pump connected with the hose, and because I'm sloppy in general and tend to be an airhead from time to time, chances are I will be losing this one, or maybe this one breaks down. So I found me a second one laying around, and by installing a small length of hose, I can also use this clip, which has also been laying around for ages and ages. That goes here, and I can have my spare hose right next to me, and I got a contingency plan right now. But enough of that, let's make this thing work. What I have here is, as explained, my brake fluid bottle, into which I drilled a hole and I installed a small bronze nozzle, which I have somewhere. Okay, there you have it. Small air nozzle, threaded underneath. So I drilled me a hole, and I'm using a combination of the nozzle with a washer, and that's glued onto the bottle. I'm actually using structural silicone here, which is super strong, and it will hold pressure, and I just connected the hose. So this bottle now can be pressurized. In order for the bottle to be pressurized, I had to convert the cap. So I had this piece of nozzle, so to speak, and I have no idea from which equipment or apparatus I kept that, but it's a female connector gasketed to a male connector, and that hooks up just like that. So now I can connect my bottle to my pump. And I basically drilled out a washer underneath and used structural silicone as well to make this one sturdy and airtight. And of course, I had to extend the length of the pipe so that it reaches all the way down to the bottom of the bottle, just like that, when it's fully screwed in. And to seal the cap to the bottle, I had laying around an old seal from the rear brake cylinder of a 1961 Ford Taunus 17M P3, which was my first car. And look at how perfectly that fits. It's as if it was made for this .4 brake fluid bottle. So got the seal in place, got my cap on, screw it on, this one goes on there, and in an ideal life scenario, I can hook my brake bottle here and connect it to my brake pump, and now this is it. I can hook it up to my spare tire, and I can bleed my brakes all by myself. Interesting contraption. Some of you might be cracking out laughing from it, but again, it's a solo trip. It's me, myself, and I, and Bob. No sponsors, no aid, no support trucks with parts and people and mechanics driving around with me. So I have to come up with ways to deal with stuff. And let's hook it up and see how it works. Right, so I'm basically ready to hook this up, and one thing to remember, or to note, is there's a lot of pressure in this tire. I don't need that much pressure to bleed my brakes. So I'm gonna de-inflate it to maybe 10 psi, because that's gonna be more than enough, and then hook it up and use it to bleed the brakes. And if I run out of air, I can always pump it up. Okay. Safety glasses, and if all goes well, fluid should come out of there. So, let's hook it up and see if it works. I got me a leak, but it works. There you go. Look at that. Too much air going on, but bleeds the brakes. So this is the final setup and how it's going to be on the car while traveling. I'm going to be using zip ties to secure the brake fluid bottle on the brake pump, because that's what I needed if I need it, and I don't want to be going looking around through bags and boxes and in the trunk and what have you in finding what I need to bleed my brakes. It's a bit grotesque, but it does the job, and it did the job pretty cheap. The cost of it was basically the brake fluid, which was something like, I don't know, €3. And the rest was stuff that has been laying around for ages. But then again, never throw away anything. You never know when or where you might need it. That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the episode and my craziness about the brake bleed contraptions, do like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the next episode. Take care of yourselves.